Welcome everyone to Monday Morning Morons for April 30th, 2018. This week, let me start with an apology, just in case there's any annoying background noises. I usually record early so that doesn't happen too much, but this week I couldn't, and since the weather is nice, naturally all my neighbors are outside making a shitload of noise. I'll do what I can to eliminate as much of that as I can, but some might still slip through. Now, I want to start off with a head scratcher. A court decision that just makes absolutely no sense. Bush-appointed federal judge rules Trump's DACA rescission was unlawful and must be set aside. Now, to explain why this makes no sense, I'm going to have to lay out a few facts first. I'll try to keep it simple, so bear with me. First, what exactly is DACA? Anyone watching the news has heard of DACA, but surprisingly, very few people have bothered to investigate anything about it for themselves, which predictably leads to some rather confusing statements from Trump's opposition. Things like, Trump can't make up immigration law, so he can't do that. Well, that's both right and wrong all at the same time. Thanks to the Constitution, the executive branch does not have the authority to write immigration law, or any law while we're at it, so they are correct. Trump cannot write immigration law on his own. He needs Congress to do that. However, they are wrong about DACA because DACA is not immigration law. DACA is an executive policy implemented by Obama in 2012. To put it in simple terms, Obama directed the Department of Homeland Security to defer deportation of eligible illegal immigrants. There's a list of eligibility requirements included here, but let's not get wrapped around the axle on that. To put it simply, it covers illegals who were underage when they were brought here by their parents, also referred to as dreamers because of the congressional bill proposed to provide a path to citizenship for these people. A bill that didn't pass, by the way, so it's still not the law. Anyway, so herein lies the problem we're getting at. DACA is not the law. DACA was never the law. DACA is an enforcement policy, or rather, Obama's directive to the DHS choosing not to enforce the law under these prescribed guidelines. Now that sounds worse than it really is. It sounds like Obama just said, yeah, fuck the law, we're not doing it. And that's how Republicans portrayed it too. However, that's not exactly what was going on. You see, when Obama directed this policy, major immigration reform was being debated in Congress, the aforementioned DREAM Act. Under that act, the status of these people would have been changed. So Obama wasn't so much ignoring the law, he was just stalling. Which sucks and I don't like it, but he does have the authority to do so because DACA did not make these people citizens, nor provide them any way to become one. It didn't change immigration law. He simply decided not to deport them while Congress worked out immigration changes. The trouble comes when the DREAM Act failed to pass and Congress did not change the law. Now you're left with these people in a new program with a weird sort of semi-legal but still not legal status. At this point, DACA should have ended. But ever the optimist, Obama extended the program, hoping that he would get the immigration reform he wanted out of Congress. As we know, he did not. I know, this is taking a long time to explain. Bear with me, we're almost there. Now, in comes Trump and a new Republican-controlled Congress. Congress has signaled that they are willing to take up immigration reform. So, Trump sits on DACA for a while and waits. When it became clear that no deal for comprehensive immigration reform was coming from Congress, Trump raised the stakes and put pressure on the legislature by announcing that he was going to end DACA. He gave Congress 6 months to work out a deal and write a law that includes these people. They failed to do so, and Trump carries through on his threat to end DACA. Now, all of a sudden, court after court says, hold on, Chief, you can't do that. Why not? Well, as this judge puts it, Bates' decision does not hold that the Trump administration lacks the authority to rescind DACA. Rather, it holds that the administration's justification for ending the policy is insufficient under the Administrative Procedure Act, which states that courts shall hold unlawful and set aside agency action found to be arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion or otherwise not in accordance with law. Catch that? Trump has the authority to end DACA, But this judge has decided he lacks sufficient legal cause to do so. Remember the beginning here? DACA is not the law. It's an Obama policy to temporarily not enforce the law. So what this judge just said is, the Trump administration needs to make a sufficient legal argument to justify enforcing the law. What the actual fuck? That makes absolutely no sense at all. You want sufficient legal reason? How about the damn Constitution, you dick? That's his fucking job. Look, I've been an opponent of DACA since it was first created anyway, so don't go thinking I'm unbiased or anything. I'm not. However, my objection to it was and still is the same. The president doesn't have the constitutional authority to write the law. He shouldn't have the authority to write policies specifically designed to avoid the law either. To me, that flies directly in the face of the intended division of powers laid out in the Constitution. Congress makes laws. The executive enforces the law. When the executive is allowed to write out policy specifically designed not to enforce the law, then what the hell is the point of having the law anyway? You're circumventing Congress's constitutional authority, and that's a very dangerous precedent. At that point, Congress becomes a farce, and you're left with a dictator, not a president. But now we've got courts saying, you have to have a reason to enforce the law that your predecessor didn't enforce. What the hell is wrong with these people? How does that make any damn sense? Look, you want so-called dreamers to stay? Great, grand, wonderful, I actually agree with you. However, Congress needs to make that happen, not the president by choosing to selectively avoid enforcing the law. If you allow him to do that, you're opening a can of worms, folks. What other laws can he choose not to enforce on a whim? I mean, these are the people whipping up fear that Trump is a white supremacist, right? What happens if Trump decides he's just not going to enforce the Equal Employment Opportunity Act? You just gave him the authority to do that, you know. Or how about he decides that it's just too bothersome to enforce the Equal Voting Rights Act? I'm not saying he would do any of things, but you people sure seem scared as shit that he might, and yet here you are trying to hand him the legal authority to do exactly that. Get your heads out of your asses, folks. What you're asking for is very dangerous. Not just for your favorite illegal immigrants, but for everyone else too. Stop asking the president to avoid enforcing the law. Start asking Congress to change the law. That's how you get what you're after and avoid creating a dictator. Okay, wow. That was a bit longer than I'd intended. Let's get on to the next one, Bob. Fresno State professor who bashed Barbara Bush won't be disciplined. I'm sure everyone remembers the uproar over this one almost 2 weeks ago. I might catch a little flack for this opinion, but I say, good. As despicable as her tweets were, it's still her right to express them freely. She broke no laws. As far as I know, she didn't break any school policies, although, as I recall, that was the initial charge when the whole thing started, violating the school's code of conduct or something like that. But as the university president rightly puts it, Joseph Castro said that the English instructor's comments about the late First Lady were insensitive, inappropriate, and an embarrassment to the university, but are protected free speech under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now I say kudos to him for at least recognizing that. Hopefully, he remembers that the next time a conservative speaker says something the progressive lunatics don't like too. Now I saw some video clips of her somewhere. I think it was Sargon's video about Marxist professors maybe. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, in those clips, she was saying some pretty despicable things as well, in class. Harassing and belittling students she clearly doesn't like. Advocating for domestic terrorism against people she obviously disagrees with. Now that is something the university should investigate. That is in their classrooms. That's what they're paying her to say. I don't know that any of what I saw breaks the law. I mean, possibly. But I bet it's not university policy to treat students like that. And if they choose to fire her ass for that shit, then I'd also say, well, good. She deserves it. But this? Nah. Free speech. Her right to be as despicable as she wants to be on her own time. Next one, Bob. DePaul offers guide on moving past privileged guilt. You've got to be kidding me. You spend years telling people, sit down and shut up because you're privileged and that person over there isn't. Which yields exactly the expected result from dim-witted morons who actually believe you. Guilt. Now you want to show them how to handle the guilty conscience you gave them? Seriously, I really need to focus on my magical studies and find a way back to my own world. I really don't want to live here anymore. You people are completely insane. One article titled White Fragility, Why It's So Hard to Talk to White People About Racism, was published by the Good Men Project and explores issues including racial stress among whites. According to the author, some of the challenges that trigger racial stress for white people include suggesting that group membership is significant. Doesn't stress me out at all to say it isn't and it shouldn't be. People of color talking directly about their own racial perspectives, challenge to white taboos on talking openly about race. We're not allowed to talk openly about race. Dickheads like you keep insisting that we need to shut up and just listen to any POC who happens to be speaking. We're not allowed to give our perspective because you've decided our perspective doesn't count. That's why we can't have an honest discussion about this shit. It's not because we've shut you down. You've shut us down, unless we agree with you. You don't want a discussion. You want affirmation of your opinion. You want to hear your opinion out of my mouth. Sorry, Cupcake, that's not how discussion works. And being presented with a person of color in a position of leadership challenge to white authority. Doesn't bother me at all. In fact, one of the best commanding officers I had in the military was a black guy. And one of my favorite staff NCOs was a black guy. They were smart guys. They knew when to lead and when to ask for help. They inspired confidence and respect, and though they were in charge, they didn't have to shove it in your face and micromanage. They knew when to get out of the way and let the experts do their thing. That they were black was irrelevant. Couldn't have cared less. The essay goes on to argue that this white fragility is the demonstration of how white individuals have extremely low thresholds for enduring any discomfort associated with challenges to our racial worldviews. Not quite accurate. We're uncomfortable when you insist that your insane, unsubstantiated horseshit is reality, even though we can demonstrate that it isn't. We're uncomfortable when you insist that we are responsible for the sins of long-dead ancestors. We are uncomfortable when you pretend that discriminating against us is somehow fair and just. In short, we're just as uncomfortable with racism as you are, but we didn't make up new definitions to conveniently excuse ourselves from it. Another recommended reading is titled True Solidarity, Moving Past Privilege Guilt, and is published by Everyday Feminism. Everyday Feminism? Okay, nope, sorry, you're done. Everyday Feminism is not a credible source for anything except butthurt, whining, and utter bullshit. If you're using it as a resource, then you are a joke, and I'm not wasting any more time on you. Toxic masculinity time, Bob. Men pull woman from vehicle sinking in Montana floodwaters. Bob? I see. Gopher's World sent us this one over on Minds. And I'll just bet he was thinking, oh look, here's something that couldn't possibly be toxic masculinity. Well, my friend, you couldn't be more wrong. This is the single most toxic display of masculinity I've seen since Houston flooded. 2 passing motorists are being hailed as heroes after they saved a woman from floodwaters in Montana on Tuesday in a dramatic rescue caught on video. Well, of course it was caught on video. Fucking men just can't do anything without showing off. Look at me, I'm so masculine. Fragile little egos. The incident happened on US Highway 2 in northern Montana, which is experiencing flooding as snowfall from the winter melts away in warm spring temperatures. The rescue was captured in a video posted to Facebook by Matt McCullum, whose brother Seth swam into the frigid, rushing water to retrieve driver April Subert from the roof of her sport utility vehicle. As we slowly started to drive through it, we noticed a car about 40 yards off the highway that appeared at first glance to have been left after someone had driven into the water, McCullum wrote. As we got closer, we could see it was sinking. We said, "We have to see if there's someone in that car." I shut off the diesel, and there was a woman screaming for help from the car. Oh, I'll bet she was screaming for help after she saw you two toxic males. Strong, independent woman trying to deal with the floodwaters, and here comes two obvious rapists to capitalize on her unfortunate situation. You fiends! Have you no shame? With temperatures in the 20s, McCullum said his brother jumped in without hesitation. Oh my God! The hubris of these two. "I'm so manly that even freezing cold waters doesn't bother me. I'm gonna swim right out there and rape a bitch, man." Sickening. Just sickening. Seth jumps into the water and swims to the car, brings the lady back to the truck. By this time, the car was almost completely submerged. He got her into the truck and gave her a blanket to warm up. "We drove her up the highway and left her safely with her husband," he wrote. Yeah, right. After all that, he just gave her a blanket and drove her up the street to her husband. After sexually assaulting her, I'm sure. I mean, these are men. They just can't help themselves, can they? Sex is all they ever think about. Can't go 2 minutes without raping or assaulting the women folk. Subert told the Associated Press in a phone interview she didn't see the 3 signs warning of water on the roadway and was going about 60 miles per hour when her vehicle hit a patch of water and she spun off the roadway. "Having him grab me was just a miracle," she said. Oh, that poor woman. She must be too scared to tell the truth about her horrific ordeal in that truck. I can only imagine the indecencies she was subjected to at the hands of those 2 toxic men. We need to get her in contact with the Me Too people so she can feel safe enough to tell us what really happened in that truck. Adding that she was also cited for reckless driving. Fucking cops. "Oh, you made it out alive? Well, that's good. Here's your ticket." Fucking dicks. Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Michael Jensen said the hazardous parts of the roadway were clearly marked by signs, and there have been no other incidents of cars sliding off the highway since the spring flooding began. Jensen said that stretch of the highway does not get a lot of traffic, and that Subert was lucky the brothers came along when they did. That was amazing what he did to help that lady, Jensen told the AP. If he hadn't come along, it probably would have been a different story. Lucky? Jesus, man. I mean, here's this strong, independent woman, just minding her own business, gets caught up in floodwaters, and just as she's preparing to swim her way to safety, here comes these 2 toxic macho idiots to abduct her, violate her personal space, do God knows what to her in that truck, and you sit there and praise them? You're one heartless bastard. The patriarchy wins again, huh? One toxic male praising another toxic male for being toxic. Give me something funny, Bob. I think we all need a laugh after that overt, disgusting display of male entitlement. Plea deal for woman with gun in body cavity. This one also comes from Gopher's World. He was quite helpful this week. Kinda makes me wonder, though, if Gopher's World did half the work this week, exactly what the hell has Bob been doing? Oh, and I absolutely believe you, too. Yes, that was sarcastic, you twit. A Missouri woman who had a loaded handgun hidden in her vagina at the time of her arrest last year today pleaded guilty to weapons possession and narcotics charges. In her... Nope. No comment. Just gonna keep reading. During an appearance in circuit court in McLean County, Illinois, Anika Witt, 27, copped to a pair of felony charges as part of a plea agreement that requires her to testify at trial against an acquaintance with whom she was arrested last September. Well, might have been a little difficult to plead not guilty considering where the weapon was. Gonna be a little difficult to convince a jury that you didn't know it was there. Pictured at right, Witt faces up to 10 years in prison on the gun charge and 15 years in custody on a heroin possession rap. However, her cooperation will likely result in a greatly reduced term when she appears in court in late June for sentencing. as part of which plea deal, prosecutors agreed to drop 4 other felony counts lodged against the convicted felon, who faces a $6,400 fine related to the heroin count. Witt and Clinton McDonald, 29, were arrested following a traffic stop on Interstate 55 just north of Bloomington. A search of the pair's vehicle turned up heroin and ecstasy, police reported. Witt subsequently transported to McLean County Jail, where arrestees are subjected to a strip search. It was during that procedure that a female jailer discovered a loaded Kimber .380 caliber handgun from Witt's vagina. The weapon, cops say, had a fully loaded clip and a bullet in the chamber. The gun, seen below in a photo from the manufacturer's website, is 5.6 inches long and weighs 13.4 ounces with an empty magazine. Witt's rap sheet includes multiple arrests, including collars for theft, passing bad checks, and resisting arrest. Okay, I'm trying to picture this traffic stop in my head. You're driving down the highway with ecstasy, heroin, and a gun in the car. Now, all 3 of those things are illegal. The gun, because you're already a convicted felon, and the other 2 things are obviously illegal drugs. So you're driving and commit some sort of traffic violation. It doesn't say here, so I'll just assume the most common, speeding. Now, with that much illegal shit in the car, probably should have been a very careful driver, but whatever. You blew that already, and you see the flashing lights behind you. Cops. Oh shit. What are we gonna do now? You grab the gun, loaded and chambered, by the way, not exactly safe, and cram it in your pants. But if the officer has to pull you out of the car, he'll frisk you for weapons. Standard practice. So, well, I'll just shove it way up here where he can't find it. And judging by the apparent ease with which you have done this, not sure he'd be so eager to look even if he could do so legally, but he can't anyway. So, no more gun. Safely hidden away, and no way he'll find it. Now, you pull over and wait for the cop to come up, and oh shit, he finds the drugs that you evidently didn't hide, and that leads to the arrest, to the booking, and finally to the strip search, where your genius plan of hiding the gun is now foiled. I'm curious. While you were shoving the gun up your cunt, did it never occur to you that you could maybe hide the drugs up there too? I mean, shit, evidently there's plenty of room. No drugs, no arrest, no booking, no strip search. Bing, bang, boom, you're off the hook, and no one knows that you've got a pharmacy and a weapons rack shoved up your crotch. On the other hand, a woman who shoves a loaded and chambered gun up her snatch, well, probably not the sharpest tool in the shed to start with, so can't really say I'm all that surprised. Guys, remember this the next time a woman complains about size. Evidently, they can fit the whole house up there, so yeah, it's not you, it's them. That's it for this week, folks. Remember the social justice mantra: women are victims, men are oppressors, and feminism is just about equality. I'll see you all next time.